Okay, so welcome to another edition of Blues Rock Review. Today we're fortunate to have someone I think epitomizes the term blues rock. So we welcome one of Canada's elite blues guitar masters, Shawn Kellerman. How you doing today, Shawn?
Good, thanks yourself.
I am fine.
That's great.
We just saw you on the weekend at Donnelly's, and one of the things that uh, I am fortunate enough just to get to go some of these shows, and I know a lot of people understand what it's like to see someone of your caliber in a place like that with an intimate setting. What do you think of playing those places on your off days?
Well, from in my past, being with like Lucky Peterson or Bobby Rush, uh, I, I don't know. I just take it from the people that were before me and who I'm learning from, and it's just like every show is a show, whether it's 10,000 or whether it's 50 people. It's I don't know. You're going out in front of people, and it's time to perform. There's no like with Lucky, every night it was 150%, or Bobby would still do a house concert, and then next thing you know, he'll be doing some Grammy show. So it's you can't let your ego get in the middle of all that. So
No, and like I mentioned, I think that the true fans really appreciate that they have that luxury of seeing someone
yeah,
like you.
it's actually someone did ask me, just 3 days ago at that exact place, and I haven't actually been asked this question in a while, but like, what's your favorite venue? And it was like, well, this one is because you know why? It was today, it was like, or on Saturday, it was everybody was enthusiastic, and it was like, how could you not have fun? And it was like, I've had some other good ones, but and some are bigger, we've been to South Korea or we've been to wherever, I've been to a lot of places, and but it's the energy, and it's like the energy was great on Saturday, so that was a great place. So what, they all have their factors, and but it mainly, I think, for a musician, it's kind of the feedback, and if you connect with the audience and they're feeling your music and the back and forth, that's the favorite venue. So
Yeah, and that's mainly the reason I want to talk to you. You mentioned some of those names. You certainly got great connections uh, to a lot of people and places. You've been to like what, 46 countries?
yep, yep.
And yeah, you started, we had you at the Canal Bank Shuffle the first couple of years, and you were great then. But I remember distinctly not seeing you for like 3 or 4 years in between. And then all of a sudden, you're with Sherm Robertson, and man, you were at a new stratosphere. It was unbelievable. What happened to you in that period?
Um, Basically, well, I think when I started doing some Sherman Robert, yeah, I don't know. It's just you. I think I was getting a lot busier, kind of even fronting my own shows, and I think when I realized, like because for the beginning of my career, I was strictly like the support, but I think when I started taking my band on the road and like really feeling the pressure of being out front. And then I was going back and forth, like I'd be behind Sherman or behind Bobby Rush, and then I'd be fronting my own. I think I was getting a feeling for all the roles on stage, just not the support band or something, but all of a sudden it's like the pressure of being out front. And then I think playing with some more people, like getting the opportunity to play with Sherman, who was such an entertainer, and Lucky. I had in the early 2000s getting Lucky and up into Canada, and then finally joining his band. But yeah, I think it was understanding the full realm of the stage, being out front, or even just being the guitar player, or you know, it's just I think learning all my roles, and then being able, you hone your craft, right? So
Yeah, and I thought that Sherman and Lucky showed some balls because when you opened, you set the bar pretty high right out of those opening notes, and those guys were not afraid to come on behind you. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool.
well. a quick story. It happened. This is, way later. This is between 2012 and 2020 when I was full time in Lucky Peterson's band. Like so back. All right, I'm skipping back and forth. But when I was young, Otis Clay had said to me, he goes, "Yeah," he goes, "You've been opening up for me. You're doing great. It's time to get on the road, right?" And he goes, "You got to be disciplined, right?" But decades later, I was on stage with Lucky, and I was just like, I don't know, I was just feeling like, hey, man, I should give him some space, like, and he kind of yelled at me across the stage. He goes, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, I'm just like, I'm giving you your, you're the guy, right? He goes, "No, man, we're together in this," and it's just like, it was all about just giving a full on show, whether it was his name, it was just about he was not he goes, "I'm in control." And it was like, and I was like, "Oh, okay." He's like, no matter, what I'm putting out there, because the other thing was is that when I was kind of like doing a semi odd, it wasn't an audition. He kind of hired me, but at the end of the week, he was like, he's like, "Well, do you want the job?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then he was like, when we went on the first kind of European tour, he was like, "You open up for that song with that song," and I was like, "Okay." And the song he picked, I mean, he picked it, not me. Was He picked basically the song that was my closer for my set. So he was asking me to open his set with my best song. Like, so there was, he was not, he was prepping himself for, he was prepping his show with my best song, like my most energetic, like 150%. So like this is how they were thinking. They weren't like, "Oh, just warm it up all nicely for me." It was like, after he'd seen me play a dozen of my songs, he picked the one that was the biggest fanfare, biggest, and that's how I had to open every show in Europe.
Yeah.
And
I think you know what he was doing. Like for us in the audience, we're going, wow, that's quite the way to start. But the way, and I remember distinctly at that show, he was in the green room kind of really chilling. And after you did your stuff, I mean, he exploded onto that stage. So he certainly knew what he was doing. There's no question.
oh, exactly. I mean that's why, it's we we were headlining festivals all across Europe, and you would say, "Oh, like all these jazz festivals," and you'd be like, "There's Victor Wooten or Stanley Clark and all these guys," but they have us headlining because it was like, but Lucky may have not been as famous, but his show, everybody knew it. It was just like he was the closer. It was just like you don't want to follow it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Oh yeah, no question. And again, speaks volumes of your ability that he would have you as the guy because you certainly were. And it was a fantastic show, no question. But let's just go back a little bit now. I don't want to rehash the history too much because I think people in Southern Ontario know you, but you had so many connections. I mean, starting with your dad and Mel Brown.
yeah, yeah, like when well, first, before my father owned the place called Pop the Gator in Kitchener, there was a guy named Glenn Smith, and he kind of like said to Mel when he was on a trip in Texas and in Austin, "Hey Mel, if you ever want a place to live, come up to Canada and got a gig." And obviously, I guess Mel took him seriously, and all of a sudden, when I was 18, Mel Brown moves to my town and actually walked into my house at a Christmas party, and we were having like a little jam, and it's just like, all right, so now like blues royalty moves to your city in Canada. It's, and he was the University of Knowledge, and I got to watch that 2 3 times a week. And if that didn't happen, I don't know how high the bar would have been set. I don't know what would have happened, because like then it was the it rewrote history, his moving to Canada. For me, it put my life on a path, you know.
Yeah. Oh, I think he brought all of Southern Ontario up with him. And that was one of my questions too. What do you think it is? I mean, Kitchener and Hamilton and Niagara are doing pretty well with blues shows and blues festivals, and probably better than Toronto. What makes those three tick?
You know, I couldn't really say. I mean, I could say for Kitchener maybe because it was just starting with Mel. I mean, well, this guy named Glenn Smith he was bringing, and when you're bringing like Frank Frost and the Jelly Roll Kings or Otis Clay or Buddy Guy before they were famous, like bringing them to Kitchener, like that's amazing. But I there's something I things like that I don't question because it seems like it's a combination. I don't know. Remember Brantford used to have huge Saturday matinee, and there'd be 100. The place would be packed every Saturday, and I'd be selling tons of CDs. I don't know. I don't know. It's just a thing happens, and the enthusiasm with the crowd, it becomes a thing. And there's places all across America. There might be a Monday night. There might be, or there's Saturday afternoon, or there's something. It's just like I don't question it. You just if you run across it, you appreciate it, and don't use it up. Just appreciate that it's there because one day it will be gone. So that I don't have an answer really.
Well, yeah, because it intrigues me. I guess Toronto is more, kind of up and down kind of thing, but the last 15, 20 years, those three places seem to have sustained blues pretty well, and I'm happy about that myself.
Yeah.
Let's just go back again a little bit. The fact that Bobby Rush, here's a guy with three Grammys and an arm's length of blues awards, and how did you end up hooking up with him in the first place?
Well, in the first place, it was back. This is where back in the '90s when I first moved to the States. I was on a studio session, and he was a guest on this session, and so that's where I first met him. And well, we had gone to Mississippi to record, and so he was a guest on the session, and then I don't know. I was just like I was ready to make a move. I was living in Washington D.C. and I was ready to make a move. I gave him a call. Because he gave me his number. He's like, oh, anytime, blah blah blah. You want to, maybe think about it. And so I called him and I kind of took him up on his offer. And he's like, called him a couple. It took a couple times, and then it was yeah. He said, well, I said I would, I'd move down, and he was like, would you? And I said, yeah. And he goes, and then he just said, okay, come down in January of 97. That was in 1997. And I came down, and got used to some of the songs and got used to the music. And I became the lead guitar player. And so back then, he was 98% of the shows were still on the black circuit in the South. He hadn't hit the white market yet. And so it was a whole different experience. I got the Southern Soul circuit. Like we'd be on shows with Bobby Bland and Little Milton and Johnny Taylor and Lattimore, and it was great. It was a whole different thing than what I knew, and I was getting an education in the whole Southern soul black music that even though radio stations in the North or in Canada were playing blues music, they didn't have this. And so I got a whole different education and that's where Mel Brown was originally from. He was originally from, Jackson, Mississippi, and that's where I lived. And so, I mean, I don't know. It's a different education. It's hard. It's too long of a story, really. But all these bands like, Buddy Guy, everybody started there. I mean, and in all honesty, Buddy Guy has gone basically to the white market. So did Lucky Peterson but Bobby Rush at that point in 97, 98, 99 was still, but he was slowly, getting known on the white market. And then all of a sudden, and not all of a sudden, but 20 years later, now he's winning, a Grammy every second year. So
Yeah, and that movie, I Am the Blues, where he was a feature part, I think, exposed him to a lot of people and gave him a wider audience for sure.
For sure. And now he's going on the road with him and Kenny Wayne Shepherd to have a CD coming out, and that's a whole different audience again. It's going to be like, because Kenny Wayne Shepherd's really got more blues rock, a lot of blues rock guitar fans, and then Bobby, they're now formally going to be doing like a few month tour, So
So let's ask this. Is there a guy smart enough out there who recognizes the fact that you could be Kenny Wayne Shepherd? Certainly talent-wise, you've got it. Uh, you're joined. So he picks up Kenny Wayne on guitar. I assume he's doing, I mean, Bobby's doing most of the vocals because certainly Noah Hunt's not there. So, you're recording with this guy, you got the talent, and along comes his name, Kenny Wayne Shepherd, and grabs the attention. How do we break that barrier?
I don't know. Kenny Wayne Shepherd's had his name going for a long time. Uh, that's I mean, there's no question about it. I mean, his name is more of a household name than mine is, so it's just reality. I don't, you can't get too, do I feel like maybe here and there I could have, I think there's an opportunity. I think I could perform, but on a bigger level. But I don't know. You can't get too bent out of shape about it. I don't know what
No, but
it's
this is a recurring theme. There's a disjoint between talent and fame, and obviously that the two don't necessarily go hand in hand, and that's unfortunate.
yeah.
Um, but am I right that Bobby's doing the singing and on that album?
Uh, I think he's doing. Oh yeah, I think he's doing all the singing on that CD. I haven't heard the whole thing yet. But I mean, I know Kenny Wayne. It's Kenny Wayne's band, so I know it's uh, Bobby will be probably because he has a singer also, Kenny Wayne. So I don't know. I don't know what their show will be like, but
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
hoping to go see one of them.
yeah,
So
yeah. And I could be wrong. I just assume that since they were teaming up, that Noah Hunt wouldn't be singing, but he certainly is a great singer, no question.
oh yeah, for sure he is. Yeah.
Um, but I want to back up again a little bit because you mentioned about the black circuit and the black audience. And I think, I read in a previous interview with you somewhere and you showed it, and you were young at the time and you mentioned about you weren't sure about uh, stepping on someone else's culture by getting into this black music. And that's pretty insightful for a really young guy. So how did you come to that?
Um, it's just, well, even someone like Lucky. I mean, the first time um I had him in Canada, even though he's a black musician, but what he was saying is because he was 8 years older than me, but he was a generation behind Mel, right? So it was like it had to be within 5 minutes of being in the first time meeting him really and him being in the van. He said to me, he goes, Mel will be out, won't he? I said, yeah, yeah. Mel should come out and he'll come to the show and blah blah blah. And he's like, we always have to respect who came before us, you know. And even no matter like Lucky. I mean, if we understand, we may not totally understand, but Lucky became pretty damn famous in Europe, like after 1992, like when he signed a record deal to Verve, and they got him the opening slot for James Brown, and that blew him up in Europe, right? So whether he did the same, he had the same fame in North America. Everybody knew him, but he wasn't really doing something like that. Even after all of that, he was like, you always have to pay tribute to who's before us. So I took that in hand, and then I'm like, well, two, and then also I'd been on the road with Bobby Rush, and he was, and he was, he wasn't like, he wasn't preaching to me about it or nothing, but it was just something that I kind of like absorbed. It was just like there's this culture, like don't take advantage and all that, and that's why I was just that's why I said it, because it isn't mine. You have to understand it's not art. I mean, I love the music and I love trying to recreate it, but you have to always remember where I'm from and where it did come from. And so I did absorb like that that thinking, and like nobody preached to me about it and said, hey, you know, what are you doing, white boy, or whatever. Nothing like that happened, but it was just understanding, and all the traveling in the South and everything. And then when I was doing interviews after all that traveling across like Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and playing all those clubs, I was like, I knew I knew where I was, and I knew there was a huge amount of respect I had to pay for where I was and what I was doing.
To me, you've taken all that and you've definitely created a place and a spot for yourself. Because to me, I see, the blues rock as a spectrum. To me, on one end you've got introspection and traditional blues, and on the other end you got expression of the pure rock. And right in the middle, you've got blues rock balancing those two things. And I think that's where you excel.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's where I am. I mean, I love playing. I do actually love playing like pure R&B or soul music or like real blues, like right down home blues. But for who I am as a front man, I think like you say, gravitate to the middle, and I'm just that's where I mean, but you know, with Bobby Rush down south when I was in his band, like we had to play. I had to play a certain, you know, totally southern blues style, and you know, he was strict about, you know, a lot of Albert King and a lot of Muddy Waters, and that was my thing. But you know, kind of when I do my own thing, like you say, it's just like I've gravitated to the middle, and kind of what happens when I'm doing one of my shows. So
Yeah, well, it's a great mix, and it creates a really upbeat, exciting show. And not that you can't do the slow blues, obviously, or traditional. Obviously, you can, and you have, and and I don't think you can be in the middle unless you've got both ends covered. Like you've got to have the feel, right?
yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah.
So, of all the 46 countries and all the things you've done, is there what stands out in your mind as some of these highlights?
Well, it's not always about the show. I think one that really sticks out, because it was like a month-long tour, was, if you remember, in the late 90s, there was huge earthquakes in Turkey. And so it turned out, you know, we did a tour like 3 weeks after those huge earthquakes. And they basically, the touring company, it was very well organized, you know, big buses, touring all around Turkey. The way they would be like a five-star Sheraton, and they transformed this ballroom of like 1,000 to 2,000 people into like a concert. But what they did is that the country had been so devastated by these earthquakes. Like when we were in the big Mercedes bus, like driving all around the country, and all you saw was like buildings, like all the windows were blown out, and there might be one light bulb going, and people were in army tents, like living on the sidewalk. Like the country was devastated, and they basically gave the show away for free. Like they were like, we can't be charging people after what's just happened. And the enthusiasm of that month in Turkey, like the resilience of the people after that, they came to the concert and they just loved it. And if we went out, it was like it was Elvis Presley or something. It was just like they just loved it. And I went out every night and jammed with local, like Turkish musicians that love blues, and met so many people and heard so many great stories. Something like that, or you know, and they were great shows, but the meaning behind it, like the feeling of the people. Or in 2000, another one is we were in a festival in the Ukraine the first time a plane was shot down in 2014, and it happened the morning of our concert. And once again, so I ended up giving a speech with a translator to like 4,000 people about, we come from North America, we're sorry about this, and so on. And after that concert, the feeling from the people was like, because it was like we had come to their country, obviously someone, we won't mention any names, came and came into their country and shot a plane down. It caused turmoil, but the festivals asked us if we would still play, and we did. And they canceled everybody else, and we played, and they asked if we'd say something to the audience, and we did. And like after the concert, like the tears, the and everybody just like did they couldn't believe, I don't know, they were so appreciative of what we did, and we stayed because there were also a lot of musicians that canceled from America and stayed home. They didn't come. So the fact that we still played, the fact that we said something, and we gave it our all and gave 100% at our concert, they felt it, and we felt it after the concert when all the hugs and tears and everything after the concert. It was those are some moments that are just, and there's always just the great, Korea was an amazing country to play in. They had an, the enthusiasm was great. So yeah, I mean, I could tell tons of stories, but stuff like that really hits home, and I remember it. I'll remember it my whole life. You know.
Yeah, no question. And it's certainly, I mean, that's a big part of the music in the first place. You're bringing joy to people, even if it's a small crowd or a big crowd. But something like that is next level, obviously. And I'm sure that it's difficult to maintain the enthusiasm through all of that and through all the shows. But, out there, there's always people who appreciate that joy. And, Tom Hambridge mentioned, if you're playing to five people and some of them are crying because you're moving them, then you're successful.
Exactly. Yep, that's exactly it.
So what's next for you?
Um, yeah, I'm just kind of actually, unfortunately, it's not really a political thing as people would like to maybe. As soon as I say it, I had an immigration problem, so I got set back a few months. But I'm regrouping, like going back down to the States, and thinking about, because I released a CD in 2024. It's been doing great and loving playing the new songs, but even thinking about recording another one this year and trying to just keep the music going. And because, I played with Lucky for 8 years, and even though I helped produce his records, it's fun to write and get my own music out there after COVID and all that. It was good to release one after COVID last year, and I feel like doing more. So it's just getting more, more of my name. There's a whole bunch of things, and I love, like last year I got a call from Shakira Saida, and playing with her, and just it's been fun playing with a bunch of different people. Plus, now getting some more of my music out there. So I just keep pushing, and so yeah, look for more music, more gigs under my name, and even playing with some other people. It's just trying to keep it open, fun, and enjoyable, and try and pay some bills at the end of the day also. So,
Yeah, that would be nice.
but like you said, before, even though if it's if even if you make five people, if there's some people crying in the audience, you can see that they're moved. Even though that this is a business, it is a business, but still remembering it is art, and that it does bring joy. Hopefully it brings joy to people. So trying to maintain that balance is, as you get older, because you think of things differently than you do when you're 22 and fresh on the road. But, trying to keep those morals and all of that at the forefront.
Yeah. Now, your last album was a great one, and yeah, I guess it's a bit of a setback not to be able to tour in support of it. but it's not that old. It's a year old now, and certainly you can look forward to presenting that to a lot of new people out there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And you had a lot of guests on it too. Well, a few guests that, again, more connections. Jason Ricci and Bobby Rush for two of them.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, I don't know, because I hadn't released a CD under my name because I was busy working with other people. Like I worked with Eric Schenkman and Lucky. I just hadn't released a CD. So I was just like, I gotta have the people that I appreciate that helped me along in my career. It was like, well, the next one I'll probably just do straight myself with, just a band. And but it was definitely enjoyable to pay tribute to the people that helped me along in my career.
That was a pretty ambitious album too. You had a lot of tracks on there.
Yeah, yeah, I was kind of written a lot during COVID. So
So you felt the need to get them all out there, or
oh, there's more. I got more, but yeah, it was, I don't know. It was I can't even remember how many tracks. 12,
I
14
think
tracks.
there's 14, isn't it?
Yeah.
12 new, I think there's 12 new ones, isn't there?
Yeah, 12. Yeah, this is 12 new ones and two covers. So
So what about that? I mean, that's another thing audiences maybe don't appreciate or think about is how much time you spend writing, practicing, rehearsing. They think they pay $10 or $20 for a show. You're working an hour and a half or 2 hours, and that is not the case.
no, no, and now I mean, hey, in all honesty, we used to get payback. I worked hard, say at a festival, and I would sell 75 CDs at a festival, and in clubs, I would sell 20 or 30. I mean, that's not too bad. I mean, that was helping. It paid for the CD, but now let's be honest. In these days, that income is not there. Um, so it's hard almost to justify putting out new music. In all honesty, but you want to, but it was I'd have my CD paid off like pretty quickly, and it was like, okay, I can show a profit and that kind of stuff, and it helped the cost. But these days, I mean, people talk about it, but I don't know if people understand. It's a whole different. It's different than it was 10 years ago.
Oh, for
So,
sure.
but I don't know. I still want to put out new music, but it's tough, because it costs money.
Yeah.
It costs
Yeah.
money. It's not cheap.
And are you distributing this one solely yourself, or you have other outlets?
Uh,
I
I'll
know it's
probably,
available on your website.
yeah, available on the website, and it is, you can stream it and that, and so, uh, yeah, I mean, but it's homegrown. If someone buys it from the website, I send it out. I'm not ashamed to say that. So,
Well, no, that's the reality nowadays.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and with technology, I mean, you literally can distribute your CD across the world from your basement.
Right.
So
And let's be honest, I think your strength may also cost you. And by that I mean you have done so much, played so many places with so many guys. You're not the guy playing the same club every month or second week, you're in the same spot. And so it's hard for you, in my opinion, to uh, jump up to say a bigger venue in Rochester because you're there every week. I mean, and I'm saying that because again, Hambridge mentioned that one way to do it, and Bonamassa did it, was to take the show on himself, open up a bigger show, and present it himself. But you're so busy in so many places, it's hard for you to do that.
yeah, it's you know, in all honesty, it was after I did watch the documentary on Bonamassa and on the part about the marketing and how they made that jump, and in all honesty, I had that exact same idea, but did I? They had to have $75,000 to front that first tour to like make the jump. I
Right.
said, like, I don't have $75,000 in my back pocket, like just to, because they rented out every theater, and it was just like, you have to have, there has to be, I mean, someone has to make that investment. right?
Right.
It's
Right.
and so yeah, you have to do it. You have to make the jump, and yeah, it's here. I don't know. It's but it is. It was the way he did it is you invest in yourself. But technically, back in the day, if you read Billy Gibbons' book, that's the way ZZ Top did it. They were three guys that invested in themselves, and every show they took the money and made the next show better.
Right.
You have to do that, and but sometimes later in life, kids, house, it's just like you almost got to do it when you're 20 because you don't have all the responsibilities. But
Yeah. Well, I didn't. On the upside, as a blues man, you're a young guy.
yeah, as a blues man, yeah. So
Uh, Certainly, you got a lot ahead of you if you want, as long as it's still fun, I guess.
yeah, yeah, like 3 days ago, I had a lot of fun. So
Well, yeah, well, it's important. Like you said, it's not everything. Still got to pay the bills, but on behalf of everyone who has seen you and who was there Saturday, thank you.
yeah,
It was a great day, and everyone was happy. And I know there was a ton of comments at the time. I certainly hope you heard some of them because everyone, and to a person, they're going, they were recognizing what they got to see, in such an intimate venue.
well, seeing that, guys like Bobby Rush would do that, or like you were even saying about how do you take the time to boost yourself. That was another thing. It was just like when I was sitting there watching Bobby, he was I could see he was making money, but the reason he was making money is because he did it all himself.
Right.
The way he'd be on the phone distributing posters across the South, he'd call a DJ. You wash my back, I wash yours, kind of thing. You help me, I help you, you know, and it was just all this, and he did it. And he did it, and he just didn't. And it wouldn't be like, oh, I got to be in Memphis, then I'll be in Nashville, then I'll be here. He hit every little town, and he did. And to watch that was just like, wow, that's an education in business right there.
Right.
Like, and he just did it himself. And I mean, now, I mean, after you win the Grammys, you almost can't. But he held until he won a Grammy. He held out. He basically managed himself. He may have had some distribution deals like with Malaco Records and stuff, but it was his. It was really technically it was his record company. It was his marketing, his everything that made him. And I could see on his own he was making money. And it was like, wow, like he really that's he took it all on himself.
Well, I hate to cut you off, but we are almost out of time, and I certainly
Okay.
appreciate. So thank you so much for doing this. And
Thanks, Paul.
I know we'll see you soon, and best
Okay.
of luck in the meantime.
Great. Thanks so much.
Hey, take care. We'll talk soon.
Okay.